Hello and welcome. My name is Vicky Washay, and this is A Wealthy Life. And we're just about to start a series of probably 12 podcasts that are going to be all about property. But of course, in there will still be business advice, mindset advice, and financial advice. And what I really want to do is just to take you through this process. So once and for all, we can work out whether this is the right thing for you. Now, why is it that I keep banging on about property? Primarily because that is the investment strategy that has helped me to live the life that I live now, a wealthy life. But also, if you look at all the different investment strategies, and we might discuss those at some point, where can you use leverage, a loan, to increase the capacity of your money to invest in assets? Where can you control an asset? Most of the time, when you take on assets, whether it's buying gold or crypto or stocks or bonds or any of that stuff, you're going through an intermediary. Yes, there are intermediaries in property, but that's the estate agent. As soon as you've bought it from the estate agent, it's between you and the lender. And of course, if you bought outright with cash, it's totally yours. If you put all your cash into a share or to gold or to something else or to wind farms, there's still somebody else in the way. So you've got control, you've got leverage. And most importantly, and this is why I encourage you to take responsibility for your finances and to build some form of second income, you've got more financial resilience when you've got money coming in from multiple sources. I'm not a great one for diversifying right at the beginning. I think I'm in a job or I run a business and I'm going to go into property. Once I've got into property, then the spare money in property, I might put into savings accounts or I might put into other investment forms like stocks or shares. So your tenants could buy your shares for you. I'm not a great fan of hitting everything in day one. But different people will have different levels of resources when they come in. And so it might be appropriate for you to start with savings or with shares. And above all, what I'd like to just flag up is I'm not a financial advisor. I am not a tax advisor. I'm someone who has had 20 years active experience investing in property. I have bought hundreds, if not a couple of thousand properties for myself and for clients, and certainly seen many, many more than that. So enjoy this next series and make sure, please, that you subscribe, that you download episodes, and above all, please leave a review if you're enjoying how we're going. Right, so let's get into the first of these episodes. And I'm calling this one, So You Want to Buy Property. So you want to buy property. When people talk about property investment, what they talk about is property strategies. What's your strategy? I just saw a post on Facebook and a young girl is saying, I'm thinking about investing in property. And the first thing everybody goes is, what's your strategy? The answer to what your strategy is should be a very personal description of the reason why she wants to invest. But frequently, the answer people will give to what is your strategy is it's buy to let, it's HMOs, it's development, it's rent to rent, it's lease options. That is not a strategy. That is a technique. And I think that's really important. We might still, within the communities, slip into the word strategies, but we've got to understand that we're not using the word property strategy in the right way. The strategy is the guiding map, the plan, the bigger vision of why you want to get into it. It evaluates your resources. It evaluates how much time you've got to put into it, how much money you've got to put into investing, your current knowledge level, your skills gap. And we're going to talk a lot about skills in this particular episode. When you talk about a property technique, and if you were to ask me, what's your strategy? And I was to mistakenly say the answer is buy to let. Buy to let is just what I'm doing. It's not why I'm doing it. It's not how by doing buy to let, I am making the most of my time, my money, my knowledge, my contacts. So you can see how we're getting the words wrong. And if we start with why, and you'll know from if other podcasts, if you've been listening to me, that why is an excellent question. Always why. Why do you want to invest in property? Why do you want to do something? Why? Once we know why, then we can dig into the most appropriate how for you. And how is the technique that follows your strategy. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And what I thought might be really helpful, I managed to come up with 7, I'm sure there's more or variations on this, is 7 questions that I believe you should answer before you take a course, before you find a mentor, or before you decide which investment technique you think you want to use, because you want to be sure that you're going to get the results that you want. So these questions are going to help you very loosely create that strategy, an outline of that strategy. Of course, if after listening to this and going through those questions, you want to book a call, you know that I will help you any way that I can. You can book a complimentary call using the link bit.ly/book Vicky, and that's a capital B and a capital V, and we'll make sure that we stick that in the show notes. But above all, whether you have a call with me or whether you do something on your own or whether you go to somebody else, answer these questions so that you are more consciously aware of why, remember the why you want to do this. Because if you then understand why you want to do this, you can pick the most appropriate person to help you. And it might be that you answer the questions, you have all the skills, you get on with it yourself. Absolutely fine. It might be that you don't think I am the right person to help you. That's fine. That's your choice, your decision. It'd be nice if we came to that conclusion after you'd spoken to me, but that's perfectly all right. And you go to somebody else, make sure that you can ask them the same questions. That means that their answers are going to tally up with your needs, the gaps and the lacks or the missing bits in the answers to these questions. So let's dive in with these questions. And I think the first thing about property is not to assume that it's because you want to invest in property. Actually, a lot of people that I've been speaking to lately, they might have come to me because either they like the way that I talk about mindset and financial resilience, or they actually think that they want to invest in property. But by the time we worked a little way into it, actually, what they're also looking to do is move home in some way. It's part of a bigger vision. And this is why you need this, helicopter view, this strategy idea. So the first question is to you, is this property for you to live in, or is this property for you to make money from? Now, it doesn't really matter which you answer. One of the first things that we're going to do is remove emotion from it, and we're going to make sure that it's about the maths. So let's do a quick bit about you want to live in the property, because sooner or later, all of you are either going to be renting and will eventually get into the housing market, or you're in the housing market and you will at some point want to change properties. With the knowledge of a property investor, you can make better house purchases for your residential purposes. So when we bought this property here, I bought this property with an investor mind. I looked at the values on the street. I looked at how much the person selling this house had originally paid for it, and they had actually built this house, so that wasn't possible to find that information. I knew about the vendor, so I knew their motivations for wanting to sell, and therefore that gave me knowledge that enabled me to create, and I do loathe this term, but a win-win bidding situation, because I wasn't going to pay asking, never pay asking, always do your best to put in an offer and get them to say no to that offer, because then you know where the baseline is, you can just go up from there. And then what I would say is we looked at a property that needed work to it. Why? Because, well, first of all, we knew we had the resources to pay for the work that needed to be done, but we wanted to be able to add value to it. So in the end, even though this is a residential property, what we have been able to do is buy something where we had, let's say, roughly a 50-60% mortgage on it. And now, because we've added value to it, the mortgage itself is about 20%, 30%. 20% if you look at the mortgage to the value, about 30% if you look to the money that we added to do the work to increase the value of the property. Why is that important? Why is that better than buying, for example, a done up new build? Because, and providing you can afford this, you buy the property with a mortgage and you put your deposit in, and then you're going to spend this extra money, this capital money, to change the property. First of all, you get the exact property that you want, styled in the way that you want it. You've done all the work, let's say day one or in the first year, so that you know that all your repairs are going to be minimal. So you're managing your future budget. You've added in value. But what we've done is that no matter what happens in the economy, our loan to value is very, very low. This house is secure. When you get into properties, and a lot of people buy properties, I know I did in the early days, you're buying in the, let's call it the normal high street way of buying a house. You're typically putting down just 5 or 10%. Depending on where we are in the economic climate, that can leave you vulnerable. If you buy a completely done house for a 5 or a 10% deposit, there is no way that that is going to increase in value quickly enough that you will have absolute security that if, you know, the worst happened and the economy plumped, you would have that bit of security. And I don't want to scare you off buying residentials. And if you've only got a 5 or 10% deposit, go for it. But is there a way that you could put up with a house that needed a bit of work? And even if it took you a year to do it, I'm working with one of my mentees at the moment. And quite frankly, she's probably got a 3-year project to turn the house into the house of her dreams. But she's buying a house now that is going to require a lot of work. But the value of the property, once she's finished working on it, and they are prepared to, you know, decorate a bedroom, move into a bedroom, put up with the kitchen not being ideal, but it's functional, and work their way around the house over the next months and years to turn it into what they want. The value that she will have in that property, the security that she will have in the property, and of course, the joy knowing that she's done all of this will be enormous. But the problem we have at the moment is there's a drive for you. You must get on the property ladder. You must get on the property ladder. You buy a house that looks great on Instagram, but mathematically, and probably, I think what I'm trying to get at here is emotional stress doesn't make sense. Now, if you're going to buy property so that you can make money out of it, what we really want to be talking about is the maths again. So yes, there's maths in the residential. That's about your ability to afford it. But the maths in a buy to let is a lender looking at the tenant's ability to pay the rent. So what you're looking at now is not just whether you're buying a house at a good price, whether you're going to add value or not add value. You're actually looking at whether the rent that a likely tenant is going to pay is a good proportion so that it can cover the mortgage costs. And lenders have a figure, and it depends on various lenders, but say typically 1.25%. So your rent must be 125 times or percent of the mortgage. So if your mortgage is £100, the rent minimum must be 125. Now, actually, that's not nearly enough, in my opinion, to give you all of that security, but it's a different approach. A mortgage lender on a residential property wants to know that you can pay it because it's only ever going to be you paying it. But when you're looking at a buy to let, what they want to know is that there is an appetite out there in the market that tenants, your clients, are going to want to pay a rent at a level that makes sense for them to lend you the amount of money that they're going to lend you. That's not just the tenant. They are then going to come back and they're going to double check you. But the simple double check on you is that you are credit worthy, that you've got a good credit score. So pay attention to all of that. That's why I talk about your personal finances, because if you don't have them in order, then it's going to be much harder for you to get a mortgage. It's also going to be things like, are you a British citizen? Are you on the voters register? Can you prove your address? So there's all that checking that you are who you say you are, which really sort of comes from money laundering and all of that sort of stuff. And then it's also going to be about your affordability. And typically, if you earn in excess of £25,000, they know that you've got wages coming in, that if the tenant didn't pay for 1 month, that you could cover it. That is their assumption. So, number one question, what is the purpose of you wanting to invest in property? Is it for residential purposes? Is it for buy to let? And then clearly head off down those paths. Now, I'm not going to talk about residential anymore. Now I'm going to just head on down the buy-to-let path. And when I say buy-to-let path, I mean whatever the various techniques you use, it's about buying a property with the purpose of letting it out rather than buying to sell or developing. So we'll just stick with buying and renting at the moment. So number two question, you're going to invest. What sort of money do you want from your property? What is the financial reason for investing? Actually, that's probably a better way to phrase it. What is the financial reason for investing in property? Is it that you want to make money that you've got now sitting in the bank work harder? You don't need any extra cash flow. I have clients like that at the moment. They don't need the money now, but they know that they can make their money work harder by putting it into property rather than just general savings. And they've got a longer term vision that, although they don't know exactly what the future holds, that this property portfolio will provide them with that additional income, and they're starting it now so that they've got it for later. So you might want to make your money work harder. You might be planning for a future that is either clear or slightly fuzzy, depending on how far away the future is. But it could be, as I've got some clients who've got children in private education, who have got parents that might be moving into some sort of care need, so either care in the home or having to go into care homes. And what they want to do is take money that they've got, either themselves or generally in the family, and put it to work so that it creates some spare cash flow that can then be used to pay private school, university, or care for parents. Really understanding the purpose of the money that you are investing is absolutely crucial, because different investment techniques will produce different types of money in different ways. So as a quick example, if you bought a property with the sole purpose of doing it up and selling it, and what you were going to do at the end by selling it is make a large capital profit. So capital is when you've increased the value of an asset, whereas revenue is like the profit that comes from regular monthly payments like rent. So a shop, for example, sells things and it makes revenue, it's making cash flow, it's making money on a daily basis. Buying something that increases in value, you hold it for whatever period and then you sell it, you're not getting monthly payments off of it. That's like a capital gain. So it could be that if you think about buy to let, you're going to make capital money. Now, there's all sorts of things you need to consider, capital gains, etc., all the costs. Is it worth the time and the effort of doing it? But what would happen if you bought somewhere, did it up, sold it in its simplest form? You'd get a lump sum. Now, what is the purpose of that lump sum? That lump sum could be seed money for you to go again. So if you remember the fairy tale of the elves and the shoemaker, what the elf did was he put out some leather and they made a pair of shoes. He sold that pair of shoes for more money than just the leather. And obviously the elves were working for free, which never happens in the real world. And he ended up with enough money that he could buy 2 sheets of leather. And the next day he got 2 pairs of shoes, and so on and so on. So he was using his capital gain from increasing the value of the leather by turning it into shoes. That capital gain gave him money to go again. Now, really, if you're going to do that, you're probably heading off down a development route, which is an advanced strategy. You really need either yourself or someone very, very close to you in your team to have architectural experience, builder experience, and above all, understand the maths. And I would also say the tax stroke accounting implications of a strategy like that. I'm going to head off down a road which is about cash flow, because that's where most of the people I speak to. So actually what you want to do is, instead of keeping your money in a building society, you want to put your money in a brick bank. That's what I refer to my little houses as. They're brick banks. They're great in that instead of my regular building society just sends me money once a quarter or once a year, shares, you get your money once a year. My brick bank pays me money on a monthly basis. So I can watch what's going on. Once a year, I can increase the cost of the rent in line with all the rules that there are about being fair rents and whatever else is going on in the market. And that cash flow on a monthly basis pays for the running costs. And one of the running costs, for example, is paying the mortgage, servicing the mortgage. It's paying the letting agent who manages the property. Once a year, you've got a gas certificate. So it's taking care of all of those things and occasionally repairs, but you can plan that process in. What I've then got is a bank account that I can see growing on a monthly basis. I can then make choices. And what I might choose to do is to always leave, let's call it a float in the bottom of my account that covers off eventualities, that is at least the cost of a failed boiler at the very least, and some of the annual costs that you have, like your insurance and your gas certificate. And I could then choose at the end of each financial year, or possibly halfway through the year, to take some money out of that account. What I might do with that money is invest again, or I might use that money, as we said, to pay for care for my parents, or pay for university or private school education, or, which I did for a long while, book a fabulous holiday. But I booked the holiday knowing that every time I went on holiday, that meant buying the next house was that bit further away. But that was my purpose at the time. And I have come back to that again in more recent years. I had a wonderful time traveling the world, but that was always my strategy. My strategy was to make my money work harder so that I could have fun and adventures. I could live that wealthy life. And that's what I did. And then I calmed down again for a bit and I got back into investing. And then when I went on again, then I did development of this house and other things, and we rejigged the whole portfolio, and then we've come back to the holidays again. And so that's the thing about your strategy. You can make it flex. And that's the thing about cash flow, is it gives you that, is it comfort? I think it's more than comfort. I think it's that financial security to know that you can make choices as long, and I said it in the first question, as long as you're on top of the maths, all the way through, understanding the money. So question 2 is what is the purpose for the money? What do you need the money for? So that then you can understand that you are going to pick the right investment technique to give you the right sort of money at the right sort of times. So question 3, how long? Now, I would say to you here that you have got to be looking at a minimum of 5 to 10 years. It could also be 25 years. It might be an indefinite number of years. But don't think that a buy to let is something that you can get into and out of within 2 to 5 years, because the costs of buying that property will not mean that it's worth your time, your effort, and you won't get the full return at the end of just a 5-year period. This is a longer term plan. I do believe that this is one of the businesses that if you can get into this without thinking of an end, right? I'm going to invest in property and I'm always going to have these properties. What I do with the properties, how I use the money from the properties might change over the period, but this is something that is going to be, if you like, a legacy in my life. I might pass it on to my children, or I might start it and run it dry towards the end of my life. It's about a long term. And why is that? Because you're always going to have things like stamp duty. If you sell anything, you've got capital gains tax. You're going to have setting things up right at the beginning. You've got brokers, you've got surveys. You might be working with a mentor or a sourcer. You've got those overheads. You might be taking the property and you might be refurbishing it, ready for rental. So there's all these costs that are involved right at the beginning. They're not exorbitant, I don't believe, but they are initial setup costs. And if you, and there's a banking word called amortize, and amortization is where you say, okay, it's going to cost me £100, but over 5 years, that's only cost me £20 because 5 into 100 is 20. It's going to cost me £100, and over 20 years, it's only going to cost me £5. So you're looking at spreading, if you like, these fixed overheads that come with buying a property out over a longer period. So understanding how long you want to get into this is really important. I think if it's anything less than 5 years, you really need to question whether investing in property is a good idea, particularly if you're a high rate taxpayer, because in all likelihood, you will have bought into a limited company and you've got even more overheads then of setting up the limited company and running the limited company. And to just do that for 5 years and get back out, I'd love to have a conversation with you if that's your plan, to work out how that makes sense. Because in my head right now, I cannot think of an example how putting your money into property for just 5 years in a limited company makes sense if what you're doing is buy to let. Now, if you really only want to get in and out in a short term, it probably goes with your answer from questions 1 and 2, in that what you're looking to do is just double your money, inverted commas, increase your money by some percentage over a shorter period of time. And so you're looking at some capital gains strategy. But remember, we're sticking with buy to let at the moment. So now let's get into a bit more nitty gritty. Question 4, how much money, time, experience, knowledge, general understanding do you have? And do you understand your gaps? And do you understand the implication of your gaps? So let's break down your resources one at a time. And if I go through in my head through what I call the 5 principles of a wealthy life: control, which is about money. So where are you with your money? Do you have savings? Do you have bonuses? Do you have regular bonuses? Have you just received an inheritance? Are you about to receive an inheritance? Do you already have a property that you have inherited that is mortgage free, that is an asset that you can release money from? So understanding your financial resources is really important, and we can dig all of those out. Then let's look at time. So what are you doing with your time at the moment? Are you an employee? So you're basically tied up Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Do you run a business? So you actually run a business probably 7 days a week, almost 18 hours a day. What's with your time? Is it children? Because that's the other thing. I work with a lot of women who, particularly over the summer holidays like we've just had, have to really slow everything down, because what's the point of having children if you don't get to spend time with them? What's the point of just going to work to pay a childminder to look after your children? So really looking at both the natural flow of the school year, the flow of the ages of your children. You know, are they younger? Are they now older and they don't need you anymore? You probably would still like to keep your relationship at the end of this. So how are you going to fit your partner in this whole plan that you have? And then let's move on to your knowledge and your experience. What are you bringing to the table? It could be that you are an architect. It could be that you're a surveyor. It could be that you're a builder. It could be that you have already bought properties. I'm working with a client at the moment who already had a portfolio in Spain, has been living in this country for a long while, and is now going to create that portfolio again in the UK. Do you have experience? But also there are other skills. And so what I've created is a skills gap workbook for you. Now, this is available in the community. So let me just take a little pause here, if you like, a little advert, if you like, for the community. So we are launching, and probably by the time you listen to this, have just launched the Wealthy Life community. It's an online space where we will have live conversations. There will be a library of resources. It will be the place that when you want to tap into the courses, you can access the courses there. It will be a community where you can ask questions and have questions answered. And one of the resources that I'm going to be sticking into the community now, very obvious resources that are going to go in, are the values manual and the wealth tracker. You know that. They're going to be available to anybody that joins the community. There is also going to be resources like the skills gap analysis. So that's not going to be available on the website, because quite a few of these things you can get to through my website if you want. You don't have to join the community. But if you join the community, you're also going to get access to this skills gap. Now, what it's going to do is ask you a series of questions. And this is going to be looking at, sometimes we call them softer skills, sometimes we call them technical skills. But how good are you at sales? How good are you at communication? How good are you at time management? Understanding those and then matching and mirroring them against investment techniques can also really show you what investment technique is a good idea for you, but also where you might need help. And that sort of brings us into point 5. Are you going to do it yourself, or do you need someone to do it with you, or do you need someone to do it for you? So you know how much time you've got available. You know what skills you're going to bring to the table, what experience you're going to bring to the table. You know what money you're going to bring to the table. What is the best? Now, this is actually heading into strategy. What is the best strategy for you? Is it you're quite capable of doing it yourself and you don't need any guidance? And there are people out there that take that approach, and there are people out there that are successful. But I would say to you, if you look at everybody in any form of business, from the Bransons and the Bill Gates and everybody up above, they will have someone that they rely on to provide a little piece of advice that is not something that is natural to them. We recently watched a program about Walt Disney, and he was the incredible creative, but he had the money guy there. So Walt's off doing all of the visionary stuff, but there was someone in his team, his partner, who provided the money, whose job was to go out there and say, right, okay, he's got this vision, I need to find that amount of money. It can be about mentoring. Okay, so it might be that you want to do it on yourself, so you want to do it by yourself, which is perfectly fine. And I would say, what about a mentor? Who are you going to go to when you have a problem? And sometimes it's not good enough to have the problem and then go to someone to get you out of it. By having a mentor, you can avoid the problems in the first place. So that could be the do it yourself. It could also be where you get your education. So if you feel that you don't have the experience, that you don't have the knowledge, that maybe you don't understand the maths well enough and you need to learn, then having someone who will do it with you, a mentor, is something that's really useful. Now, one of the things that I work with, one of the ways I work with a lot with clients, is that I have a course called How to Become a Successful Property Investor, which really is focusing on all the skills required to source, to locate good deals, which you can buy for yourself or you can buy for other people. And there is a whole resource bank there of set knowledge. But what I always add with it is my time, because I can give you, let's say, the encyclopedia of property investing. So I'm going to give you the encyclopedia of property investing. Here you are. How you understand it compared to the next person understanding it will be different. How you react with the information in terms of maybe emotional baggage it brings up will be different. And that's not something that people usually talk about, but we're talking about lots of money here. We're talking about your future. There are going to be emotions that come up. And if you deny it now, I guarantee you that you're going to come back to me in a year or two and go, oh, yeah, I've got them now. They always come. I've had people that have said, no, I'm absolutely fine. And then we get within a week of exchange and they have a panic attack. So it does happen. Trust me, 20 years experience. I do know this. I have never yet met someone for which there isn't an emotional component in this. But what you can also be doing is looking at your mentor to be the person who provides that support, who points out how, if I take you and this whole encyclopedia, chapter 3 might give you a bit of a challenge. Whereas if I take somebody else, it could be chapter 2 or it could be chapter 7. working with someone who gets to know you. Now, I'm not going to knock all of the group trainings that you can get into, but if you're not working with someone who knows and cares about your success, I would question what financial value I would put on that. Now, I have been in this situation when I first started out. We paid an enormous amount of money to be in a, let's call it a general training program. Each course was taught by somebody else. And yes, they were very nice, but after the course, we never had interaction with them again. They didn't care whether we actually implemented or even learnt what we were being taught. There were supposed to be mentors, and there was no one who actually cared about our success, even half as much as we cared about our success. But we paid 20 grand. And I think you do need to consider that. And then there's the third way of doing this. So you don't want to learn how to do it yourself. What you need is someone to help you invest the money that you've got. And what you want to do is invest in property. So you want to use someone, and we're going to use the term a property sourcer. Again, I would be very careful about the service level that you get. Certainly something I do, and you know this, is I'm going to work with you on your personal finances. I'm going to encourage you to look at the emotions and the values that come up here. Very, very keen to look at why you want to invest, so we get that overarching strategy correct at the first stop. And then I'm going to work with you as a project manager to take the pressure off of you, to use my time rather than your time, my systems rather than you don't have any systems, to get you swiftly, not quickly, swiftly to property investments and get them through to completion and get them through to the point where they are generating an income because a tenant is in situ. I've got that experience. I've got that team. I've got those systems in place. So having someone who works with you, be very cautious of this word property sourcer. The other thing is, I'll tell you now that if you come with me and I source for you, I will be teaching you how to manage your property business. I'm not going to just find you a deal, hand it over to you, at best put you with a letting agent and let you get on with it. I'm going to make sure that this is successful for you, because what's the point of me helping you buy a house and then not making sure that that house returns a profit for you? That's the point of this. And that's what I enjoy. I enjoy people seeing the benefits of their effort. So I get pleasure out of this, and I'm not going to do it if I don't get pleasure. So really understanding, now you've, through question 4, looked at what your skills gap is, where your weaknesses are. Now in question 5, I'm asking you, what sort of help do you want? Are you going to go it alone? Are you going to go it alone, but make sure that you've got a mentor on board? Are you going to learn from a mentor and really be part of an education system? So having, instead of DIY, have it someone doing it with you, or do you want someone to do it for you? Question 6, I would go with here 3 things: maths, organization, and negotiation. Where are your strengths at this? And you know, not everybody is going to be good at these. And this is going to shape your technique. And this is picking up again from question 4. If you're good at maths, great. If you're not good at maths, then you need someone very clearly in your team, potentially someone like a bookkeeper, who can help you set up the spreadsheets right at the very beginning. You're going to need to be able to use Excel or numbers. What about being organized? What system are you going to have to manage your properties? No matter whether you work with me, whether you work with someone else, whether you do it on your own, whether you do it with someone or have someone do it for you, how are you going to manage what is effectively a business? Are you good at diarying things? Are you good at keeping folders and filing things away? And then if you're going to do things yourself, what about negotiation skills? How are you at asking for a discount? I know when we go away on holiday, or in fact, quite a lot of the time, all over the place, except when we walk into Tesco's, Bob will negotiate for everything. He does not have a filter there. It's not something that bothers him. I have a thin filter in that I wouldn't ask for a discount in Tesco's, but there are certain places I will ask for a discount. Obviously, with property, I very definitely ask for a discount. how are you about negotiating? How are you about sales? And this will shape your investment technique. So, for example, if you're not good at organization and you're not good at sales, then managing your own property once you've bought them, whether it's with the help of a source or anybody else, I would suggest would be a really bad idea. Never mind whether you've got the actual fundamental knowledge of, all the things that you need to do to stay compliant. If you're not organized, naturally organized, it's not going to be long before you miss something on your properties. And we see this all the time. I've recently bought a property for a client, and as part of the process, the due diligence that we do up front, there was no electrical certificate. That is a £30,000 fine. That landlord either negligently and deliberately didn't know that he had an electrical certificate, didn't have an electrical certificate, or didn't have the organisation and systems in place to check that the letting agent had renewed the electrical certificate when they should have done. This could cost you a fortune, your reputation. It could cost you your credit history. It could cost you money. It could cost you your financial future. It could make you lose everything. There'll be a conversation, because I've already recorded it, that is going to come out in probably a couple of months from now, where we are talking about people who build empires but don't have the organization in place to do it. So picking up on this idea of first the resources that you've got, then the skills that you've got, and looking at the type of help you need, this is so important. And then what I would say is number 7. This is really where we're going to weave all of these 6 answers together. What is the best use of your resources and your skills, combined with an investment technique that is going to get you the result that you want and that you need? So question 1 said, what do you want to do? And we picked buy to let. Question 2 said, why do you want to do it? And we chose a reason. Now we're at question 7. All of the answers, 3, 4, 5, and 6, need to come neatly together. This is where we're kneading all the ingredients together to create, if you like, an answer. And the answer is, what is the best investment technique? You're going to put all of these bits together, jigsaw puzzle pieces, that's a better metaphor, all the jigsaw puzzle pieces together so that they create the answer. And the answer that is going to be in front of you is going to be, this is the best investment technique for me. And I would say for most people starting out, at least one buy to let, just so that you wet your feet, so that you understand where you're going with this. But don't leap into that first investment without having the strategy first. I was speaking to someone a couple of weeks ago, and they've taken an expensive training. They have done everything that they were told. They have bought their first deal, and they've come to me because they just don't know what to do next. They don't know how to go again. Because the strategy wasn't there at the beginning, the overarching picture, the technique that they have used, or the version of a technique that they have used, has meant that they now don't have the resources to do this again. So they've gone through all of this, they've got a limited company, they've used all the money, and they've got a massive portfolio of one, and no way to actually rebuild this. Although obviously I can think of ways that they can rebuild this. So going through these questions is absolutely key. Okay, that's your 7 questions. What I want to do now is thank you very much for listening. And hopefully what I've done is put some whoosh into your life, that I have got you really thinking about important questions. So you want to buy property, whether it's residential or whether it's not residential. Quite frankly, even if it's residential, understanding your time, your money, and the experience is important too. But particularly if you're going to start a property portfolio business, answering these questions and getting the right level of help is key. And what I would like to signal to you is that you can join the community. There will be links on the show notes for this podcast. There'll be, I'm pretty sure we can put a slide up with the link that you can go to join the community. Join the community, and in there you're going to be able to access the skills gap workbook that will take you in greater detail into really understanding what you're good at, what you're not good at. And then you're going to be in a position where we can book a call and look at that, how that's going to shape your strategy and reveal your investment technique. As always, thank you very much for listening. So hopefully those 7 questions will have really taken you on a deep journey. I would love it if you go through those questions, maybe listen to this podcast again, take a note of those questions, and then be in a position where you go, okay, I've got some of the answers, I haven't got all of the answers, or I've got some of the puzzle pieces, I don't see how this goes together, then please do book a call. If you join the community so that you can access the Skills Gap workbook, there will be, certainly for the inner circle, there will be monthly calls where we can answer questions in there, but you know that you can book a call with me and the links will be in the show notes. So I hope that this first one has really sort of set the scene for you, that we're starting with the strategy and that is going to sort of shape things for you so that we're not making a mistake on day one. That's what you don't want to do with your first deal or your first venture into property. Make a mistake that either costs you financially or puts you off of property, because it's not property's fault. So make sure, please, that you subscribe, that you follow, that you download. Please leave a review for the podcast. You know how important these are. And click on the links so that you can read the show notes and join the community. And I look forward to seeing you in there. Thank you very much again for listening. My name's Vicky O'Shea.